Thank you for hosting a Malone University Cooperating Teacher. We created this webinar to provide you with all the information that you will need as a student teacher enters your classroom. We will explore 4 areas: an overview of our program, we will look at our assessments and our forms, we will explore other assignments that the student teacher will do outside of your classroom, and we will look at your role in our program. Before we go any further, please make sure you've printed out the handout that accompanies this webinar so that you have all of the documents to refer to as we go through the presentation. As we begin to give you an overview of our program, the first piece of information that we would like to share with you is our student teaching website. You will see here a screenshot and a web address for this website. On this website, you can locate information about roles and responsibilities for all individuals involved. You can find a timeline, as well as all the forms and assessments that will be used throughout the 15-week experience. A copy of this webinar will also be located on the website, so you can refer back to it as needed. Next, we will take a closer look at our typical timeline and student teaching schedule, as well as discussion topics that we recommend are covered on a weekly basis between the cooperating teacher and the student teacher. Next, we will look at the timeline for our program. This timeline is provided in the printed packet that goes along with the webinar. The timeline is divided into 15 weeks. First, we will look at the cooperating teacher's roles. The cooperating teacher will help the student teacher learn to plan, teach, and assess student learning. We also ask that each week, discussion topics are covered between the cooperating teacher and the student teacher. These discussion topics are also provided in the packet that you printed to go along with this webinar. During week 7 and 8 and week 15, you will see that the cooperating teacher must confer and complete a midterm or final evaluation of student teaching, as well as an assessment of candidate dispositions. The supervisor also has roles over the 15 weeks. They will come observe the student teacher 6 times, 3 before the midterm and 3 after. They will also confer and complete a midterm and a final evaluation with the cooperating teacher's help and an assessment of candidate disposition. This will be done during week 7 and 8 for the midterm and week 15 for the final. At Malone University, we have 2 types of student teachers. We have 15-week student teachers who are placed with one cooperating teacher for the entire time that they are student teaching. We also have 7-8-week student teachers whose time is split between 2 cooperating teachers. You will see both of their schedules here. We ask that our student teachers ease in and ease out of student teaching. This means they might spend a few days observing, then picking up one class, and then another, till they are carrying the full load of student teaching. They will then ease out the same way. We encourage both the cooperating teacher and the student teacher to have roles in the classroom throughout the 15-week experience so that the students in the classroom get the best experience possible. We also suggest that during the 15th week of student teaching, that our student teachers be provided with the opportunity to observe other fantastic teachers that may be in your building or district. On our student teaching website, you will see a link called Roles and Responsibilities. This link takes you to a chart that explains the roles and responsibilities of the student teacher, the cooperating teacher, and the university supervisor. We suggest that you take some time to read through this chart so you're familiar with your role in our program. As a cooperating teacher, the university supervisor is your first line of communication. Please express any concerns to them first, and our supervisors are trained to work through the process of supporting our student teachers, and they will also request assistance from the Director of Educator Preparation Programs if needed. The next section, we will look at the assessments and forms that are used during the student teaching experience. Here you will see a screenshot of our website where you can find copies of all the assessments and all the forms that are used. Please note the evaluation of student teaching is different for different content areas, so please make sure you're looking at the correct one for the student teacher that is assigned to you. Next, we will look more closely at 2 assessments that are given during the student teaching experience. We discussed both of these assessments when we went over the timeline. The first assessment is called the Assessment of Candidate Disposition, and the second is called the Evaluation of Student Teaching. They are very similar. They are both completed by the cooperating teacher and supervisor. Typically, the 2 parties confer before completing their individual copies online. They are both completed at the midterm and final points, and they are both in rubric form. Next, we will look more closely at the Assessment of Candidate Disposition. The candidate's disposition is a measure of values, beliefs, attitudes that are very necessary to be a good educator and a role model. It is not the skills of teaching. At the midterm, this is completed as a pre-assessment. However, at the final, we have very high expectations for our student teachers. We expect them to rate at the highest level 3 in 8 out of the 12 areas. Here you can see the rubric rating scale. A level of 3 means that they are applying their values, attitudes, and beliefs. We have created an observable actions list that goes along with the disposition rubric. This observable actions list is located in the printed handout that goes along with this webinar. This will allow you to help the student teacher experience different activities that would demonstrate that they are showing 3 application for their values, beliefs, and attitudes so that they can score highly on the dispositional rubric. Please use this observable actions chart as a guide for the student teacher's experience and your completion of the Assessment of Candidate Disposition. Next, we will look at the Evaluation of Student Teaching. This evaluation does measure the skills needed to be an educator. At the midterm and at the final, we expect our student teachers to score a 1 or above in every rubric area. Please understand that the highest level of 3 on this rubric is set apart for areas in which the student teacher is truly exceptional. Here you can see the rubric scoring. You will notice that 2 target is for the end of student teaching, and 3 exemplary is for the end of teacher residency, which aligns with the resident educator program in Ohio. We have also provided you with an observable actions chart for the evaluation of student teaching. This will provide you a guide of the actions that we are looking for in our student teachers to be rated at 2 end of student teaching. Please use this guide during your student teaching experience to help provide the experiences that our student teachers need to be successful, and also use it as a guide as you complete the student teaching evaluation. Both the evaluation of student teaching and the assessment of disposition will be completed electronically online through our assessment system. Once the student teaching experience has started, you will receive an email from Malone giving you directions on how to log into our assessment system and to complete the evaluations. As a cooperating teacher, you need to complete the assessment of disposition that we just spoke about and the evaluation of student teaching. However, there are some other assignments that your student teachers complete throughout the 15 weeks that we would like to make you aware of. The first and the largest is the EdTPA, the Teacher Performance Assessment. This requires the student teacher to plan, instruct, and assess a 3 to 5 lesson learning segment. Most of this takes place outside of your classroom through written commentaries. However, there will be some overlap. The student teacher will need to videotape themselves instructing, and they will need to collect student work to demonstrate student learning. Our student teachers understand that the video and student work are for the purpose of the EdTPA only, and they will not use this for anything else. The EdTPA typically takes place in the first 8 weeks of student teaching. Our student teachers will also put together a professional portfolio over their 15-week experience. This is simply a collection of artifacts that show their growth and skill as a teacher that they will use for interview purposes. At the end of student teaching, our student teachers will complete a philosophy of education paper. And finally, we encourage our student teachers to sit down for a mock interview with their building principal at some point during their 15 weeks. As a cooperating teacher, you will be a small part of some of these assignments, but most of them are taking place outside of your classroom. We know that the 15 weeks that our student teachers spend immersed in your classroom are the most formative of their Malone career. We value you, the cooperating teacher, as a very important extension of our program, and we hope that our Malone supervisors are a support to you as you mentor our student teachers. I'd like to end by reading a verse, Ecclesiastes 4:9, 10, and 12. 2 are better than 1 because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. Though one may be overpowered, 2 can defend themselves. A cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. We view the relationship between the cooperating teacher, the Malone supervisor, and the student teacher as a cord of 3 strands. We know together the Malone supervisor and the cooperating teacher can provide the support and growth that our student teachers need. We'd like to thank you, the cooperating teacher, for taking the time to mentor a student teacher and also taking the time to be part of our Malone University program. Thank you for watching this webinar. If you have not already done so, please print the packet that goes along with the webinar, sign the front page, and give it to your university supervisor. Thank you for your service, and thank you for your time.